Okay. So does anyone have any questions or any comments or anything they'd like to share this morning?
I would like to share something.
Oh, okay, please.
I loved you had us today breathe into our three dantians from the perspective of space and light, from the experience of space and light. And it was awesome. I really appreciated you having us do that. It felt like just what I needed today. And it felt like as I breathe into them, it really kind of opened up the central column more. And just practice was so much better from that place. And then I had a really cool experience where as I was breathing into the central column, it felt like everything else filled without, it's like before I felt where I breathe in the central column and then expands out and I keep breathing into everything else and it just extends out. But it felt like just breathing into the central column, I found like everything else filled like kind of by the central column, if that makes sense. And it felt like the rest of my body filled. And then I felt like the chi kind of like coating my skin and then filling the field. And then it started to go out like into different dimensions, which I hadn't experienced. I like from breathing as much, like it felt like it was like filling different dimensions in the past and the future. And it kind of felt like I was like a big bang and my central column was like the bang point. But the cool thing is it felt like I didn't have to do any of that. Just breathing into central column like took care of that. So that was a really cool experience and it made me feel more connected with the universe. And then I had an experience where in the partner practice, and then like I found at some point I didn't feel like breathing anymore. So just put my attention on my attention in the central column. And it felt like it did the same thing, which is really cool. Like it didn't need breathing. But then in the partner practice, you've been taking on this journey of different experiences of feeling ourselves being moved and connecting to the partner's dantian and the four gates, and then feeling the chi going ahead. And I was kind of like, how do I experience this all at the same time without having to try to experience it all at the same time? And then I was breathing into my central column and it felt like it did that. It felt like just breathing central column kind of allowed me to experience all of them all at the same time. And it felt like it was kind of like a differentiation and integration thing, because it felt like if you hadn't brought awareness to those different parts, I wouldn't have gotten to experience them. But then just being able to breathe in the central column, it felt like it kind of like brought them together. So that was really cool. And I just really appreciate you having us connect with our three dantians that way.
Thank you for sharing that. What's the word for it? Like the experience that you had was actually what I was hoping for. And the actual three dantian exercise and the partner practice, they're the same. They're one and the same. And it sounds like you actually experienced that, which is really good. It's like really cool. I want to say actually, as someone who's facilitating these experiences, it's like really cool. You don't quite actually ever know what people are going to experience when you introduce these, but it's really just rewarding getting to hear what people are experiencing. But I really like what you said about the three dantian, actually, where when you breathe into it, it wasn't like a physical spreading where things were spreading from the dantian, but it kind of just spread to the whole body anyways, right? And
yeah, exactly.
right. And it's almost like, if I'm not mistaken, what you experience is actually probably more accurate to say that as you started breathing through your three dantians, and as it started illuminating and becoming bright, you started, the other parts of your body kind of actually also concurrently starting to resonate and become light at the same time. And it's more like the neighboring part, it's not like, like typically we think in terms of like the dantian breathing, and then the dantian breathing having the pressure, and then from the pressure it's spreading, but it's almost more like uh, kind of just neighboring light spreading, at night, when you look at a city, like a light goes on and then another light goes on somewhere else, and then eventually like the whole city lights up, right? It's kind of more like that, where it concurrently spreads, or it's more like spreading talcum, what you powder on a baby's butt, where you kind of just spread it evenly, and it's almost like the central column or the dantians, it's kind of just like it lights, and then the other parts of the body go, oh yeah, yeah, like like they also light up. And so it's kind of like, and so I get the impression that that's the experience that you had, and if you did that, that's exactly the experience we're looking for, because then we don't have this idea, we don't have a physical idea, because energy is not limited like that. If we have a physical idea, it needs to spread from one point to the other. But if you don't have a physical idea, it doesn't need to spread from one point to the other.
This is okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is so helpful because actually I feel like what you're talking about is spot on, because it felt like what you said resonate. Like I feel like that really kind of opened my eyes to what you're talking about, because that was the difference. It felt like it wasn't a sequential thing, or it wasn't a physical thing, or it wasn't a distance thing. It was like a resonance thing. Like the example you gave with the lights in the city. And it felt so much easier than having to actually like consider sequence or distance.
Yeah. It is so much easier. And so, it's like, yeah, it's so much easier. So very good, very good. So, well, thank you for sharing that. And I feel like there was an enriching sharing. And it's like, when it lights up like that, all the things like that I was talking about in the partner practice, they just naturally kind of just line up and happen, right? So
Thank you.
like,
This is really, really great. And I feel like it makes the rest of my life feel easier, because I feel like in the rest of my life, I don't have to use like sequence or distance or like effort like that. I can just be light, and then it can just resonate, and I don't have to use effort. And so it feels like a much better, easier way to live.
yeah. You don't have to do anything. You have to connect. That's probably the most powerful concept that, that I learned, that it's about oneness. That, if you have that idea of oneness, and then we're just trying to connect to that oneness, and that's really all we're trying to do, and just understanding that, and then we're just getting better ideas on how to experience that oneness more and more effortlessly, instead of having to do something. And and then if you have the energy to do something, you can do it, but not having the idea that that's what you have to do. And if you put in the effort, that's something you get to do out of fun. But fundamentally, that if there is an effort, then the effort goes into finding better ways of connecting, better ways of being effortless.
That is awesome. Thank you, Master Kim.
Welcome, and thank you. Okay, very cool. Huh. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share, comment on, or ask any questions?
Master Kim, I also had a share about the 3 dantians.
Yes.
My feeling was that there were 3 very distinctly different feelings. The first that I felt was the heart dantian, and that felt like really open, like the bubble almost of void, calm feeling. And then the dantian, and that felt really dense and heavy. And then the third dantian, the third eye, that felt like a breeze was flowing through it, almost like energy was just blowing through. So it wasn't like they lit up, but I could feel them, but they were very distinctively different.
That is actually accurate. They're very distinctively different. And actually that what you're having is actually the experience that most people have initially. And so actually you're correct. The dantian is actually the most dense. And what's the word for it? It is the physical center. And so it actually governs the physical center. And the heart is, for relating. And so, you feel the expansiveness of the heart, as you said, that infinite nature of spaciousness and connection when the heart is wide open. And your third eye will actually feel like a breeze because the mind represents freedom. So that is actually correct. And if you keep doing that, at some point, there's a light. Literally, it's just a bright light of kind of a dome of bright light at some point. And to some point, it's different for everyone. Sometimes it just happens right away, actually, for some people. There's actually no good time. It's almost kind of, yeah. And for some people, it happens later. And for some people, it's like first the third eye or the heart. But at some point, you will actually experience that light. But until that time, actually, what you're experiencing is really good. So as you feel the density, and as you keep actually experiencing that, you will actually experience next from the density, you will actually experience it heating up and becoming like molten lava. And with a heart, you will actually feel not only the expansiveness, but you're going to start feeling a lot more light, and just brightness and just happiness and joy, and a really strong sense of connection, actually.
The sense of molten lava, is that different than feeling heartburn?
Yes. Have you ever placed just a nice hot water bottle on your tummy and then felt the relief of your innards letting go and feeling like, ah.
I've put a heavy blanket there and felt like stress relief and relaxation. Yeah.
Okay. So imagine that if you do that, this is very difficult to explain because if you haven't experienced it, there's nothing quite like it. But if you experience the hot water bottle that I was talking about, it kind of feels like the hot water bottle is inside you. And
that sounds really awesome.
It's actually pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty awesome. the issue isn't the experience, the issue is stabilizing it. And so if you keep staying with it, at some point you start experiencing it. But it literally feels, it depends on the person. For some people, they actually experience it more like a hot air balloon, like the kind that floats in the air. And so they kind of feel that just heat. And so for some people, they actually experience it more like lava. And for some people, they experience it kind of actually much more like literally kind of like fire. And so it's really different. It really depends. But at some point, you're going to experience it. And for a lot of people, they experience it like hot water balloon.
Does it help if you actually get a hot water bottle and put it there and simulate the feeling?
Actually, it does. It does. And, it's actually one of the reasons why you place your hand there when you do the dantian breathing. Because the hand heats up and it helps with gathering the heat there.
That's very helpful. Thank you, sir.
Yes, and so heat definitely helps. Actually, you can actually create, or you can actually just cover that area in a blanket to keep it warm and breathe. And so definitely external heat, having that there, or keeping warm clothing, it keeps all the energy in. And so especially in the beginning stages, when you don't have a lot of natural heat, it's actually a really good idea to do that. Another way to do that is you actually kind of like you go on a run, and then once you feel like after you feel comfortably warm and you do these exercises, you'll notice that you can feel the heat a lot easier, because a lot of this is actually based upon having really good circulation. And so however you do it, it's actually good to simulate a condition of good circulation. And then once you do that, and then you do it, you'll notice that it's a lot easier to feel it. And once you feel it, then it's a lot easier to look for it.
Thank you, Master Kim. I will try that.
Good. And so anyway, so thank you for sharing. And you're absolutely correct. The three dantians are indeed different, and they have different qualities. And from a training perspective, there are two, and I think this is what makes it so fun. There are two different aspects of training. One is absolute and one is relative. And relative is also called progression training. And so you progress. And that relates to the physical part of the training, where there's a gradual progression. Like, you feel like the density, you feel like, your third eye is breathing. And so there's a good progression. And so I can actually talk to you about the progression. Like the breeze, the third eye, that actually stabilizes. And besides it just feeling breezy, the breeziness, the reason you feel the breeziness is because there's still some blockage in your third eye area. So you can feel it, but that becomes a lot more just spacious. And then you start actually having more visionary insights as your mind stabilizes and empties out. And then your heart, actually the connection and the kind of devotion that you feel in there increases. And so those are like the progression exercises. Now, those are called relative. Now, besides those, you have what's called the absolute or realization exercises. Realization exercises are a little bit different in the sense of where you have a realization of a more fundamental truth. And all of a sudden you start seeing the world different. And because of that, you have experiences. And those, there's no progression. And so, and that's one of the reasons why there can be so many disputes. It's like, oh, you're supposed to experience this. And some other school says, oh, you're supposed to experience this. And oftentimes what you'll see is that, you know, they have a differing opinion in terms of how the progression is supposed to go, because that can actually, you know, differ from person to person. And then sometimes actually they're not defining whether it's a realization experience or whether it's a progression experience.
So the realization experience sounds like what they call an epiphany.
Yes, it is.
Sudden awakening.
Yes, yes, it is an epiphany. And so all the progression, you could say, you're actually just doing it to increase the chances of the epiphany. So it's something you get to have fun with until you have the epiphany, if you will.
It sounds like fun.
It is fun. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you for your
Thank you, Mr.
questions.
Kim.
You're welcome. Okay, now I need to scooch here. So you'll have a great day of training and have fun, whether you're on progression or whether you're on realization.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kim.
you so much.
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Kim.
You're welcome. Bye.